Hello, welcome back. We're the Heretic Sisters. I'm the hopeful heretic.
And I'm the fearful one.
All right, so we're here today to talk about Trump and Putin.
An amazing photo you've chosen. Thank you, Suzanne.
Yes, we'll have a better one next. But yes, so thank you, Tatiana, for joining me again for this reunion show. Couldn't do this one without you. So I want to hear from you. We haven't talked about the situation that's going down in the States. So I want to understand from your point of view, how are you seeing it from a perspective of somebody who's actually lived in this, what do you call it, the administration of Putin? And how are you seeing it from an outside, well, from a unique perspective, I guess, from what's happening in the US?
So, like, for the moment, if we would put aside all our mystical or transcendental aspirations, it looks like now something similar to what we had in Russia happens in the United States. Yeah, you have on top of the country as a president, you have someone who sometimes seems to be really crazy, yeah, like other people surrounding him. But that's the state we live like that since. For me personally, it was 2012, yeah, but actually it started earlier, at 2008. So we are slowly got used to it, yeah, and that's the usual tactic of this terrible person named Vladimir Putin. Yeah, he did it all very slow.
He did it slowly.
Slowly, and so small movements each month, just a little bit more, just a little more. So we all got used to it. Of course not, but somehow most of the population got used to it, and it is still okay for them. I hope that Mr. Trump, as he didn't receive such education as a spy, to be honest, yeah, and all these tactics that Putin really studied when he was young, and he implemented them in his work at KGB. So hopefully Mr. Trump would not be dramatic. But I'm looking a lot of astrology stuff from US, about US, and I suppose you're facing really hard times.
It's interesting because the first time he was in office, it was similar but very different. There was a lot of roadblocks to what he was doing, and the times were different. So there was a lot of things that he was doing aggressively like this, but there was a lot of resistance inside, I guess what they call the deep state. So there was a lot of resistance, and the media was still resisting. And this time, so it's not a slow walking into, but then again, he had a whole administration before this to ramp up his efforts to be more strategic. So it is very different, even though it's not a slow burn. It's still now again chaotic once again, but there's so much that he's put into place, and you can see it, that it seems like, oh my God, this is possible that he's going to be able to pull this one off, even though there's still some resistance. I think he's put into place a lot of power, money power, that he's being able to lash out against some of the guardrails that have been put in place in the United States to keep this from happening. So it feels like it's very risky, even though other people say, oh, it's going to be fine because we still have the judicial branch. We don't see the executive branch really working, but we still have this judicial branch. But it seems very precarious right now from the US's perspective. So I'm very curious about how it's going to develop. And obviously really alarmed, but I was alarmed the first time, but even more alarmed. So tell me, how long did it take him before it really solidified into a dictatorship?
So actually the turn was around 2007. I missed it. I was just married and I was expecting my first baby and so on. I worked a lot before this moment. I was so involved in my projects. But actually, when we look back, some of my friends saw it already in 2005. So he came to the presidency. He received the president chair in 2000. Yes, something March. And first 3-4 years, it was like, Yeah, okay, nice. But some clever people, wise people, as soon as they read that the former member of KGB or employee of KGB would be named as a president, for one of my contacts here, it was a reason to reject Russian citizenship and receive another one. So she understood it immediately. When you see a person who worked for years and for KGB turns into president, this is a bad sign. And she understood it immediately. She was living in Europe for many years. So for her, it was totally understandable. I didn't get it in the year 2000, but I was starting to get it somehow around, 2008 already was unpleasant. Yeah, to be honest, because like we were living in St. Petersburg, and it was a day my son was 1 month old, and we were visiting our friend on a picnic outside St. Petersburg, and it was a lot of police everywhere, militia, yeah, and they were standing on the way from St. Petersburg to Sestrorezsk, like every 100 meters you see a policeman, because Dmitry Anatolievich Medvedev, the second one, the small one, his old friend from university times who was supporting him in the beginning of 2000, and who was also a president at the time, was celebrating his birthday. And that's why they almost closed in May this road, which is used for locals to enjoy any kind of sunlight on the seashore and so on. And it was so terrible and disgusting. And one of these policemen stopped us and said, if you don't bribe me now, you will have problems. And we have a 1-month-old baby sleeping in our car. And it was so disgusting. It was May 2008. And really, so lately I investigated why did they all stand there. Just because Volodya and Dima, so Vladimir Putin and his old friend Dmitry Medvedev, were celebrating somewhere in the outskirts of St. Petersburg. So from these small things, I started to understand like in which direction it all unfolds. But I still wasn't. But in 2012, when it was announced that they changed the constitution, Dima would go away and Vladimir Vladimirovich comes back on track as a president. And then it was already in protests before it, after they changed the law. But it was this feeling that you cannot do anything. It's a paralysis. We spent a lot of time outside Russia, and then we moved. So when he started the situation with Crimea and all this stuff, then it was like the last resort for us. So no Russia anymore. No way we gonna live in Russia after that. So it was 2014. It was clear, but still I didn't expect war to come. And how do you receive the situation in the United States?
Well, I mean, it's pretty scary. I mean, we all suspected this. I did a few episodes to better understand it for myself that I launched in the Heretic channel. The Christian Right episode really helped me understand how we got here and what Elon and Trump's partnership is about and how they're working together very effectively, to be honest. I mean, Elon has his North Node Mars in the Gate of Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
You know how
I know
gate, right?
I know his gate.
And so Putin has his North Node. He doesn't have his Mars, but Mars and the North Node in the Gate of the Butcher is pretty dangerous. So Elon's partnership right now with Musk is really putting some power into this. I mean, he's already been bribing people. Elon is bribing people about this whole attack on the judges. He's bribing people in a state to sign a petition that these judges are corrupt because they're making decisions about Trump's behavior, which actually he hasn't been getting a lot of pushback from the judges, a few things. But this judge has question his ability to deport Venezuelan citizens who have not gotten due process. Mm-hmm. And some of these citizens, he's done this without due process. And he wants these judges dismissed that are saying, no, this is not right. You can't do this. It's very clear that he's going to put this up as a way to fight these judges that are going against him. He's basically pushing the boundaries of the law, and he's testing which judges are going to push back. And then he's going to get his base riled up about these judges. And I'm very concerned that these judges, I mean, he's creating a lot of fear right now around the United States with his pushing back, because this movement is very dangerous, and they're putting out a lot of enticements to them to make them think that they're going to get money from this Doge effort. I was just looking at my Google search and I saw this, they're putting out this content that the IRS is giving them money, Doge is giving them money, and it's just basically spam that they're putting out to support this effort that their Doge is actually doing good things, which I don't know if you've listened to the news. They've let go of a lot of scientists. They've started to deport and block the institutions, the educational institutions. They're doing a lot of things that, if it moves forward to any great degree, is going to be exactly what you're saying. It's not slowly, fortunately, it's happening very quickly, that things are going to get out of control in a way that's scary. I mean, it's already getting scary. They've already put out a lot of blocks against transgender people. I mean, that was an easy one. We knew they were going to do that. Mm-hmm. But now they're going against anybody who's protested, any educational, like Columbia and Penn State, anybody who is supporting people who are protesting, they're pulling funding. He's basically doing things that, in a way that strong arms people into complying with him by using money and power. You can see the writing on the wall. And if he's allowed to do it from the Supreme Court is kind of the last bastion of, will he be able to do this? And some of it, is scary because they have been behind him, but because he's attacking the judicial system in general, I'm hopeful that they'll put a stop to some of this, and they'll put a little bit of guardrails against him going after judges, because he's pretty much creating this fury of trying to get his base riled up so that they'll actually say, yeah, we want these guys out because they're from Venezuela. We don't even care if they aren't actually gang members or not. We want you to do this. And that means, okay, well, nobody has due process. I mean, it's a slippery slope.
Yes, and you implement this process the way you need it, in favor of your interests. Yeah, but I would say you are lucky, if one can put it like this, that it all happens really fast, and you are not. The population it's really hard to adjust yourself for such a streamlined changes. But then the way it all goes to is a civil war. What do you think? I've heard a lot.
Well, yeah, there are a lot
civil war in the USA.
There are a lot of predictions, there are signs that, from the astrological perspective, that make it pretty likely that these cycles will continue the same way that they did continue. But sometimes it's hard to predict exactly how. As astrology also predicts that we're going to have a resurgence of power to the people. Mm-hmm. So there are some signs that are positive toward that. But yeah, are we going to be able to get our rights without fighting? I don't think so. At this point, I don't like to predict exactly. The signs tend to point the way toward something pretty serious happening toward that 2027 year.
Yeah. Unexpected. Rah!
Yeah. And so it's hard to predict exactly. But, I was kind of like, what do you feel? Do you feel safe where you're at? Like, I mean, I would feel like right now it just feels so precarious. Like, I mean, I was like, be careful to you, because I was just like, I had no idea. I'm glad that Europe is fighting back, but it's hard when they're so used to the United States being a part of the resistance, and now we're not. So you don't feel any fear about the precariousness of what's happening, even though you're in a country that's not Russia?
To be honest, so let's put it like last years were really hard for me, and I simply reached the lowest level of everything. Yeah, I'm not scared anymore. So after that, when you reach the bottom line, you can only go up. And let's say since November, maybe last year, it all turned to the in a positive direction now. And somehow, surprisingly, I noticed that I'm not scared anymore because I
Yeah.
was so extremely scared in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So like I saw everything now. I don't care. Like I had a lot of experience with dramatic situations, with total changes since I was 17, like when my country ceased the existence and my parents divorced, and I was in the last year of my school education and moving to the university. So, like, you could walk. It was in 1991 that you woke up in another country. Like nothing has changed, and there is no USSR anymore. Like you didn't notice it because your parents are divorcing, and you have to decide where do you go after your graduation.
Yes.
Funny, yeah, it was funny. When you are 17, it's really funny, but I'm not back to this state of mind. So I'm not so cheerful anymore. I'm not 17, yeah. But like I don't care. And also a good friend of mine, she formulated it the way like it is time for Europe to grow strong again and
Yeah.
to start behaving like an adult and not like a child. Russian threat, protect us from them. We need NATO to help us. Now, United States and Donald Trump are helping Europe to reach its maturity. Yeah. So you have to put it like, and I suppose she's right. So it's time to wake up, to
Yes.
understand your position. To okay, now we're alone in this fight. And what are we? Oh, okay, our Bundeswehr doesn't work at all. Oh, okay, we have to invest some money. Our infrastructure sucks. Our trains are always late here. Like, oh, we have to do something.
Yes. You know what? And that's part of it too. Self-empowerment
Mhm.
is part of the story. So when I'm thinking about all of this from a perspective of what's good, is I see the partnerships now outside of us. I'm like, that's good for them. They
Mhm.
need to focus on taking care of themselves. Yes, like Canada. I love Canada. I have friends in Canada. It sucks. Mexico. I love Mexico. I love
Mhm.
everybody. You know, I don't want to be in a position where we're being the bully, but in a way, it's good for them, you know? And so I feel good about that for them because I think it's a good call for everybody to kind of wake up and say, and stop taking for granted
Mhm.
all of the things. And to be honest, I feel like this is almost like to me a witch doctor. He's the witch doctor that's coming out to kind of pull out all the shadows of the United States and let us look at them. And he comes in and you do all of these rituals.
Or
Sergey.
Sergey, yeah, shamanic
Sergey.
stuff, yeah. Sergey.
Yes. So, you know, they do in the past, you know, you've put all these rituals on the stage so that you can purge all of the elements. You know what I mean? That are nasty and you know, grotesque and get them out of you.
Mhm.
Well, it's almost like he's doing that for us. You know, he's pulling all of this demonic, grotesque, non-empathetic, you know, spirits from the United States. But a lot of what's been going on in the United States has been working for a very small minority, but still that minority compared to the rest of the world has been living pretty nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and all behind the scenes, we've had mechanisms going on that have kept us from actually being what we could be. You know, we've had to take advantage of other countries to live the life, just like Europe, to live the life that we have lived today, even though it's lacking of spirit and nobody's really happy. You know, I think it's just bringing out all of our demons and skeletons for us to look at really clearly and be able to hopefully move on from. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how long this part is going to take. And I'm like, I don't really want to be here in this, you know, dictator role. I don't think anybody does. I think they're probably just in a trance, even the powers that be, even the companies, because once you start down this road, what are you going to, you're going to have to pay the toll. And the toll is not exactly what you think it's going to be sometimes. So I don't think this is a good direction for anybody, but we will see.
Yeah, but by the way, when I saw this inauguration event and Zuckerberg and Bezos, it just reminded me of Russia so much. It was really cringing for me to see them behaving the way Russian billionaires did before when he started with Khodorkovsky. It was really clear that if you are not with me, then you're outside Russia or in jail. And they all started to behave like Mark did and Jeff did, so nice and polite. It was actually, it was also disgusting, but that's the way it works. And they have their corporations, they have their millions, milliards of dollars to care of. But it was like a bit disturbing to see it. Like I thought it was only it was possible only in our country or somewhere in China or somewhere in Asia where it is more or less normal.
Yeah. So did those companies change over time? Did the people that were backing him, are they still in power, or did some of them get kicked out?
Yeah, so mostly, of course, they all adapted. Some of them left the country, of course, and has chosen another way. Mostly they adapted themselves. It's like a traditional game in Russia. You say what you need to say when you meet the boss, what you're discussing behind his back, and what you're talking. Sometimes it leaks on a regular basis, and some kind of phone conversations, what they really think about the situation. And it is all quite often is reported that the elites are really tired of the war and everything he does. But when they meet him, you put a mask and mask works for you. And that's how it all done in Russia until now.
But have some of them gotten killed? Some of them have gotten killed, right?
Yeah, of course. So Berezovsky, it is still not clear if he was killed or it was clearly suicide because he was almost broke and he lost everything. But still, like most likely he was killed because KGB works like that. We have to get used to this way. It's not usual in Europe or United States and Russia. It's kind of new normal. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not very interested, but part of me is like, maybe I should stop talking about this because it is, who knows, when they're going to start putting into place things that make it risky to talk about this so publicly. Even some of the things that I put out so far, I'm like, I wonder.
Dangerous even on your side, yeah?
Yeah, like
you're quite free to talk about anything, of course.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
And right now it's so far, but we don't know how long. So for me, I'm just like, okay, so let's move on to the next slide. This is another slide. This was the last.
Oh, that's even better one. Yes, you know what to choose, my sweet one. Yeah, it was done much earlier before, I suppose. The situation.
This one, was his first administration.
Yeah,
showing there was a lot of discussion about the collusion of Donald Trump being so nicey to Putin. We know that Trump prefers this type of leadership. Now, we have suspected that they've had business relationships before. And Trump, he had this big controversy with taking files that he wasn't supposed to take out of when I guess Biden came on board and he took files. Well, we think that those were files of his because they did have an investigation of him and his relationship with Putin. So it's suspected that he's had business relationships with Putin in the past. There's not been any evidence so far that there has been any collusion necessarily. But we know that Trump is in favor of dictators, and we know that Trump wants this relationship between the United States and Russia to change. And we know that astrological signs are pointing to something changing because of the cycles. And so we don't know how far this change is going to go because, as we'll see in their designs, I think it depends on how they both negotiate, right?
uh, let's. It's not a negotiation for the moment. It's just like show a buffoonery. I don't receive it as a negotiation until this moment because it's like a game. And by the way, I noticed someone was commenting that Donald started the negotiations in the worst possible time to do it, and that's why with Russia. And that's why it looks like he's selling low United States and all its positions, because Putin is almost broke, even if he shows that everything goes well. No, everything goes not that well, and it's time to end the war. And he's holding his face simply, and that's it. And you only have to do this, and he could fall down, even though, like, it is how it could develop. And at that very moment, Trump starts to negotiate with him like with a normal leader. And so, but it's a play. Most likely, Trump would sell him to China as soon as it is needed. So it's like we have not to forget that there is also China, and China is the main competitor, and Russia is simply standing in the way.
Yes.
And he would sell Russia short as soon as he would see the reason to do it. If Putin hopes for something, of course, there is no reason to hope for anything.
Yes. So all of this, yes, is a play. We don't know for sure. I think a lot of people suspect, and I did this analysis with Trump and Elon, they underestimate Trump first and foremost. They've always underestimated him. And so for me, I hold myself back from making any judgments about what's happening with him and Putin and what that's about, because people are making all sorts of judgments. And I'm like, well, there's got to be some kind of, I hold the fact that Trump is not as stupid as people think he is or have said that he is. And so I'm like, well, I'm interested to see, not interested. I wish I didn't have to wait and see what happens, because I'm a little trepidatious about it, of course. But I do know that Russia has things that Trump has indicated he wants. You know, he wants minerals, and he wants to align with somebody who's going to give him access to that. And it really is, in my mind, well, first of all, I think Trump really does want to take over and have vengeance against all the people that have been against him. But he also is very money focused. And so he wants to do what is in his moneyed interest first and foremost. So let's get to their charts, because I think it's going to help us guide us to what we're talking about.
On this terrible photo.
Nice.
Yes. Better to see charts. It's easier like this.
So I want to just point out that Putin's time of birth is in question, but this seems to be a pretty, he could either be projector, which I don't.
No, he's a manifestor. I'm completely sure of it.
That he's a manifester.
Yeah, that's stubborn. This stubbornness could belong only to manifestor. Believe me, I have a manifestor sister.
No, it seems very clear to me that this chart is pretty right on when I looked at the other things that could be. So we have 5-1 splenic manifestor, cold stone killer. I mean, the design seems to point that way, repelling, lots of power, has a completely open sacral. And then here's Trump, the manifesting generator 1-3. So they both have the one line, the authoritarian, as Ra has called the one line. They're more inclined to want to be that or to embrace that style of leadership. So you've got the 5-1 who's universalizing it, and you've got Trump on the 1-3 cross. So Trump's cross is cross of Eden, and Putin's cross is cross of endeavor. And so they've got that in common, that one line, right? Trump and him both have, well, Trump has an open G center, completely open G center, and Putin has a undefined G center. That 2 points down to his open sacral. And they both have gate 33 in their charts that are pointing down to their identity. So they have a way of attracting projections to their identity very easily. We did that episode about the cult leaders, and I said all of them seem to have open or undefined G centers, the ones that I looked at. And it's very clear to me now that I'm looking at more leaders is the people that have these undefined G centers are the ones that do attract a lot more people.
Yeah. So so you didn't verify it statistically, but you did enough of research. Yeah.
Statistically, no, I have no idea. And I also want to point out that it's not just cult leaders, but real gurus, people that just attract a lot of people because those people really project that they are for them, that they know what they need and they're going to provide what they need for them. And from that perspective, also, Trump is very focused on tribal leadership. He's got some abstract energy. The 1762, that's logical energy too. So he's got logic and abstract energy, but he's very tribally focused. And Putin is also tribally focused and focused on ambition and then self-centered individuality.
Yeah,
well, not so much self-centered. He's got the gate 28, so he has the possibility
to turn. Yeah, but what I noticed and what tells all the story for Putin, for example, in this case, is Pluto and gate 4 and line 2 and line 5. And line 5, the line 2, the recognition of limitation in oneself and others leads to tolerance and the suspension of judgment. Yeah, this is the nice side. So this is the blue text, but in detriment, the assertion of the ego at the expense of others' failures, the potential to take advantage of the lack of understanding in others.
Yeah.
That's what he does with the population of Russia. I mean, with propaganda and everything. They do not get it, and he uses it for his own purpose. That's exactly what he's doing. And
he's got Pluto there. So he's got Pluto on his south node too. And that gives him a lot of power to seduce. His nodes are, 449. So he's got a lot of power to seduce. And then his north node is in the gate of revolution. So he's able to seduce others to go toward the revolution that he wants to. It's on his undefined solar plexus. So it's pretty dangerous in what it wants, and so does Trump. Has his north node in this gate 45. So propaganda he's a leader of propaganda, as we've seen in the United States. So he's also able to do that in a way, but they're different in the ways that they're motivated. But that ego, he's got that 21 control. He's got to control the people who make the money. And that's part of his cross. On an undefined ego is part of his cross. So he's got to control everything, which I think is interesting when you look at, I haven't gotten to their composite charts, but that's going to be the breaker, I think, in them, because somebody with the 21 is not able to compete with the person who has the full channel. And because Putin really needs that control, I think that's where it's going to break.
And by the way, the Putin's north node 49 second line, this is the last resort. When you say, you do not behave, you did it wrong, Suzanne. I'm not letting you eat anymore, or I'm not giving you gas or oil anymore. This is the last resort, the last tool that I could use to manipulate you. And that is exactly what he started to do with Europe, for example. With the whole world. It's so easily explained in these two positions, for example. But this predatory, he's called reptiloid. He was called reptiloid by, unfortunately, Boris Nemtsov, who was killed, the politician, and by Navalny. He is a reptiloid, actually. That's what we see on his body graph when we look at his body graph. Trump is warm. He is more...
Reptilian is what you're saying, right?
Okay, so we say reptiloid in Russian. Reptilian. He is. Actually, there's not an exaggeration. The one who could spend years preparing himself, training himself, developing himself to reach the goals his open ego offers to prove himself. and then to use his tools to manipulate everybody, to receive the things that he needs, or to improve his position. And at the same time, he would use the power of the energy of people who do not understand anything in his
Yeah,
favor.
so if you look at his chart, so we don't know for sure, but if you were to say, yes, this is his chart, this is his time of birth, he's quad left, and he's got a splenic manifestor. He is strategic, cold-blooded, going to get his way toward his North Node, which is about revolution. He's going to find a way very strategically, very smart. And then Trump, I was talking about this when I was talking about him and Elon. They're both right-oriented minds. And so people project onto them. One, they project Elon as a genius. And then Trump, they project that he's stupid and he's got dementia. They just both act on instinct.
They're not logical, like the way we are used to.
Yeah. And so Trump is emotional, and he can be warm. And he's got his Mercury in gate 52, the line of delusion. He can basically communicate to anybody at any time. And he can be delusional, but he makes his delusions fact. That's how we've seen it. Like he just basically speaks what he wants. He's almost like, he's a manifesting generator. So I think what he's done, he really works well, I think, with the dictators because he knows how they operate. And he wants to be a manifester. And so he basically is kind of manifester-like. He's like, I'm going to just say it until it comes true, which is a manifester in a way. Manifestors basically are distorted reality fields. They will not take no for an answer. They'll just do it, do it, do it, do it. And that's how I see Trump operating. He basically just kept saying until it's become fact. People believe him. They manipulate the history books, basically, propaganda, until it becomes true. They'll make it true by rewriting the history books, basically.
Oh, that works well in Russia. Maybe he's learning a lot from Vladimir. They wrote a lot of history, and there are a lot of young people now who believe in all this shit.
Well, yes.
Try to implement in the times when you have to know exactly how far KGB went to distort our history and our understanding of ourselves.
Well, it's worked generation after generation. That's what Trump aligned with the Christian right, who worked with the Nazi regime, and they aligned with tech, who has the ownership of all of the communication now, because we had not put any laws into place about who gets to spread lies. And so now with those two factors, they basically are using the playbook that generations before us have used. And people have protested against that and have tried to raise awareness to that fact. But there's a lot of generations through this time of when he first got into power. Well, actually, it's been going on for a long time, but it really ramped up because we've just had no laws about what you can say on the internet. And I don't like censorship more than anybody else. But this is the result of that, when you can just basically manipulate a whole generation and people. He basically split people apart in many factions because of the vaccines, because of the ways that other people felt that the Democratic power was taking over and making people embrace things they didn't want to embrace, like transgender people coming out for gay marriage. There were a lot of pushbacks. So people felt that they didn't have a say in their lives. And then COVID came and that just drove it up another notch. People just don't have trust anymore in the ways that things were operating. And so now he's used and took that for his advantage to basically now feed them a lot of other things that are definitely more in line with where he wants it to go. And then he's got Musk, who's like ramping that up because of his interests, that wants to destroy all of these things because his companies were in trouble.
What I want to add, you do not have the chart of Zelensky, yeah, in this presentation.
No, I didn't. I didn't bring Zelensky into the mix.
I just wanted to pay attention that at the moment when Zelensky went out of Whitehall and he behaved the way he behaved during this communication with Trump, I immediately understood that he should be manifesto. This is really a manifesto thing. You are from a small country, from Ukraine. You're like really small if you compare yourself to Donald Trump and United States, and you still behave the way you see you have to behave. This is definitely a manifesto thing, because with Zelensky, it is not clear that there is a possibility that he is born as a projector, and it was discussed, but he is definitely a manifestor. After that, I was completely sure.
Okay.
Nice to notice, but still it puts this war between Ukraine and Russia in like, when you have two manifestors on both sides, then I don't know where it leads.
Oh, and a lot of Leo. Trump has a Leo Mars, and so does Zelensky. And then Putin has a Sagittarius Mars, so a lot of fire energy. But I wanted to point out, I didn't point this out earlier, Trump's having a lunar return today, and Putin's Mars is very close to Trump's moon. It's not in the same gate, but they have a lot of Venus-Mars energy together. When you look at evolutionary astrology, Venus-Mars on the South Node, which is what their contacts are about, they could have either been lovers or warriors. Lovers or warriors in a past life. So it's
what you feel that Trump is behaving more emotionally than logically in negotiations with Putin. It looks really funny because you cannot do it with KGB spy. Yeah, actually. But Putin's position is so weak in the real life that it is okay. But Trump is behaving like a loving woman. Yeah. Looks a bit like that.
His negotiation style is really strange, but I just also wonder, because he's got Pluto in that gate 33. And when you look at that, he was born during a time when Pluto was at its north declination. It is out of bounds and it's hanging off of his throat. He's got an open G, and Putin has his Mercury there. And Pluto is more powerful. I have no idea how Trump is behind the scenes, because I don't know. We just know what he's saying in the media. I almost think that Trump's negotiation style is definitely different, Pluto out of bounds, but manipulates in a way that we don't know how it's going on. But he's definitely worked his way toward success using money, of course. But I suspect there's something going on behind the scenes that we just don't know.
We just don't know. And what we see is just a show.
It's a show.
It's a show. It's a show. I don't. So let's wait until June. I remember, like Steve Judd said, like in June it will all start looking normal, because until then probably this show will continue, especially Vladimir Vladimirovich pretending that Russia is strong and never stronger before.
That's the thing, is because he says this because Saturn and Neptune, the cycle is going to touch off in June after the Jupiter-Saturn square. And they have Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter contacts together. And Russia has a cycle with Saturn and Neptune.
That's the defining cycle for Russia.
It's a defining cycle, and Putin has that in his chart in Libra, and now we're going into Aries. So it's basically an opposition to his born Neptune Saturn conjunction. So he's coming into an opposition to that. So it is going to definitely be a place where he's going to have to confront other people in his power to wanting to be an aggressor. So he's going to have some reality checks here.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yes. And so when you look at the gate 57 and 53 is where this all comes out. Because Donald Trump has Saturn and Mars, has designed Saturn and Mars here. Saturn is in the same line as ours. Saturn is in line 4. So Mars, he's got an unconscious or mutative capacity, which is a tendency in success to haste and imprudent action, which we're seeing that a lot lately. And then that leads to an exhalation that leads to new and sometimes awkward beginnings. And Putin has his design Venus here with Uranus in line 4. And so what I'm thinking, Kronos, Saturn, castrates Uranus in the mythology. But the combination of Uranus, Saturn, and Mars is deadly. It leads to separation and violence. But I'm thinking, well, does Venus save them here? Because together, when they're facing each other, I think Putin's either going to back off or something's going to happen to him. I'm not going to predict anything, but it's either going to be a separation or some violence is going to happen. Because that's
the most possible, though, like in Russia, it is often done like this. Yeah. So elites are keeping silence, saying, yes, of course, you're right, our Tsar, yes, of course, and they do something, and then they do something terrible for him to disappear. That's also how it goes. No, not the way it is like done in civilized world, like elections, impeachment, or whatever. No, we don't need it in Russia.
Yes.
We have simpler approach to the situation. Yeah. So, like, I heard some things about his possible difficulties in his health, and generally the personal situation for Putin in the coming 2 years are not that wonderful.
Like he's got Uranus coming to his moon. So transiting Uranus will come to his moon. If that's where his moon is in gate 20, it's coming. So that usually means a disturbance in your body or your emotions. And then they've got Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter are in gate 57. Both of them, Trump has Jupiter, design Jupiter, or no, actually personality Jupiter there. And Putin has Saturn there. His Neptune is his design Neptune. So they're all meeting there. Those are the cycles are meeting there. And if he's got his moon in gate 20, that compromises Trump. I don't know. I have no idea how that's going to work out. It just like, and when I look at the charts and when I look at Putin's cycles, it doesn't look good for Putin. But at the same time, I'm not sure what's going to happen if it's related to Trump or not, because they definitely, if we want to look at their electromagnetics, they don't have a great chart together. They have that one electromagnetic 44, which is the Vladimir's Venus is here. It's in the line of manipulation. And the South Node is in Trump's chart in gate 26, which is also it's the same line, 5. So that is called surrender. And so they're surrendering together. I'm not sure how. But otherwise, Trump, he compromises him in the money line, but Putin compromises him in the channel of transformation.
Yeah, you're right.
So they have a lot of compromises together. They don't have a lot of electromagnetics, and they have 2 open centers. So they don't identify with each other. They don't think like each other. So it's not like they're lovey-dovey like people think.
It doesn't look like that. Because it is a show. Yeah, it is a show mainly from the Trump side, because Putin, what he says is like, you can stop taking it into account. Yeah, he's really far from the reality already, and he would face his reality check, I hope, as soon as possible. So he's somewhere in his delusional world, and Trump, in this case, he's just playing with him, to be honest. Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, I would imagine people are always thinking, well, Putin is much smarter than Trump, and maybe he is, but I would not underestimate Trump at this point. And so I think he's Uranian, so he's going to mix up everything and he's going to throw people off. And that's how he gets them. Now, I don't know. I think there's some kind of divine intervention, to be honest. I don't know that they're actually going to face each other off, but I wouldn't put a bet on either one of them, to be honest, because I don't know. But it doesn't seem like they're all lovey-dovey, but they do have some interesting connections. So when they did business dealings before, they could have been very good business dealings. And I think Putin could have thought that he had the upper hand and could have seeded a lot of ideas to Trump and brought Trump to where he is today, for sure.
I'm
Because
sure
Putin,
it's like that. So it's like, yeah, this KGB science is really a mighty thing, but not that far, probably. Are you
well,
sure?
I'm just saying that they could have had an alliance. They could have. That was business oriented. And Putin does work in very interesting ways. And Trump really does like the dictator. And so he could have used his operatives to pump Trump up for sure, and wanted to destabilize the US in general, is what I'm saying. And so
Yeah,
he's gotten his
that is
wish.
always on the list. Yeah, for last
He's gotten his
50,
wish. We are
60, 70
destabilized,
years.
you know, but will he win the prize? I don't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah, yes, it's a big question. Will he stay on top long enough to win this prize? And if it goes the direction he sees it, no, I don't think so. I hope for it. I hope for it. But time will tell us really soon, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, like in this situation, but still, Trump behaves in a really strange ways. But when you compare him to this cold-blooded killer with a real human lives on account, and it's count like not 10 and not 20 and not 20. I suppose more people are dead because of Putin's will or his actions or his direct orders. So it's like you have to understand it when you see this person.
Yeah, I mean, he's a manifester, he's cold-blooded, but at the same time, he has not been a world leader, so he's had to do certain things according to how he feels he's had to do them. Trump has been relatively lucky in his life and has always been on top. And so dangerous-wise, I still think he's pretty much up there with Putin. It's just that, yes, he's been more fortunate to have power on his side and money on his side and the ability to be a salesman. So he masks it and operates in a different way, but just as dangerous, I would say. I remember Epstein. You know, Epstein was like...
Not Magnitsky. Magnitsky in Russia, but Epstein in the United States.
Yeah, and it wasn't like Trump got him in trouble or anything, but he did mention to somebody that he would be really scared if Trump became president. He would be the one that he would be scared of. And so, and I'm seeing that real time, you know, he definitely has a taste for vengeance and he's definitely playing that out and he's doing it in a very public way. And so are you scared of the person that's stone cold blooded or the one that's more emotional? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Like the more emotional, sometimes he reminds me of myself. Yeah. How illogical I could be in my actions. And I think, oh yeah, that's, I know this. Luckily, I'm not on top of the world and I'm not taking serious decisions with such a mood and such a behavior. So like it is kind of sympathy. Of course, I understand who he is. But in comparison with Putin, who was slowly but steadily letting us out of the air in Russia, and it is like 20 years in a row, very, very slow, well-planned execution of this process. Somebody saw it in 2000, somebody understood it in 2005, somebody in 2008, but he was all the way involved in this all, and he did, and he actually achieved what he planned.
Yeah.
He executed his plan brilliantly, and we are all suffering now. So I don't know. So let's hope that Mr. Trump, with his emotional instability and all his capabilities, will not reach the same point as Putin in a shorter period of time. Yeah, so that is possible. Yeah. So like,
sure. And he's not conscious of this emotional life that he is like this. And so it's sort of inescapable for him to be any other way. I would hope that I feel like he's shaking things up no matter what, if he's in power or not. Somebody else is going to take and run with it. The people that are behind him, the oligarchs in the United States, are definitely of the mind that they have to keep power because our population has changed. And they were seeing the writing on the wall that if they didn't, they would have to pay more taxes and all sorts of things, and they would have more limits. So even if Trump doesn't succeed, he's getting older. If he doesn't succeed, they're definitely not going to let go easily. So I do think we're going to be headed for some kind of standoff between the people that really want to stand up for freedom versus the people that want to go toward this route that's more controlled from a singular network of people. And so we'll see what happens, but he's definitely a Uranian person. And then Putin is Plutonian. So they're operating in a slightly different way. Pluto is definitely the person that is the slow burn, and Uranus is definitely the person that's going to smash everything down. And that's definitely like the 1-3 is like that. When they see that something's not working, they're anarchists and they just want to destroy everything. And 5-1s are a little bit more security focused, so they do that.
He would keep it until everything would be rebuilt the way he wants it.
Yes.
Yeah. But right, so how do you see that Putin is Plutonian and Trump is Uranian? How do you understand it from astrology perspective or like from the overall archetype?
The nodes. So Pluto is Putin's south node in gate 4, and Uranus is in Trump's north node in gate 45.
So this is a reason to tell that they are Plutonian and Uranian persons.
Yes. And, Donald Trump was born on a lunar eclipse. And so he was definitely born at a very intense time. That's why he's very intense. He likes this chaos. And with that north node is definitely mixing. This was his destination, basically. This was his destiny to be doing what he's doing today. He is destroying everything, and it has to be rebuilt. And Vladimir's from his south node, he's just come into this, like you said, KGB. He's come into this. He's going toward a revolution. Pluto on your south node is going to keep you in your south node because it's basically a lot of power there. So he's coming from a place of seducing, going to a place of revolution, but that seduction part of him remains very strong. And Donald Trump is coming from a place of being the salesman, the 26, to the tribal leader that's going to destroy everything. It's going to mix everything up so that we can figure out something new, and the world can figure out something new, basically leading us to this where we are at the wheel, which Pluto right now is in Aquarius, that we're in the Uranian cycle right now at the beginning, and things will stabilize a little bit after that Uranian portion. But he's bringing us toward that 2027. If you want to think about the prophecies, he's bringing us toward Pluto in Pisces, but we're going to have a long 20 years in Aquarius first. So what I can imagine is that there's going to be a lot of disruptions and chaos that's going to happen, but in spurts, and we might have a lot of technological trying to bring everybody into a technological world control. That's what I would see. But then everything is going to go into like chaos when Pluto goes into Pisces. So there might.
Well, that's an interesting time to prepare.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to be like we're going to go toward a world order where everybody is controlled by some kind of technocrat, some kind of technology, and then that's going to be destroyed. Because what Ra says is that the 2027 is not going to be technology driven. It's going to be wiped out eventually. And so I can see that technology is going to come to the forefront. It's going to have power for a certain amount of time, but then it's also going to be destroyed.
Let's see, because all these prophecies, that's the usual stuff. Somebody comes and tells people everything would be in ruins in 20, 30, 40 years, and it will all unfold like this. This is kind of traditional way to shock people and to, let's see, I'm like more prone nowadays to look towards 2027 as a like turning point, but all this catastrophizing, the way Ra did it, it's like one more reason to drive you crazy. That's enough. when you read
Yes,
the news.
I agree with you, Tatiana. I don't think that the future is set. I think there was some indications that something like this could happen, but I don't know that he knew exactly how it was going to happen or where we were headed eventually. I'm definitely like you. I don't think though. I think you can see cycles. You can say, well, this looks like it might happen, but we're all much more chaotic than any prophecy can. Even if you think that we're under some sort of program, I think the program would be like, haha, you thought this was gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Oh, that's okay. But I just read once more being one of the early disciples of Ra translation of what Ra said about Putin's dream rave in 2007. He already saw what's coming, this cold-blooded killer who walks up in the night by gate 20. Yeah, and he's immediately scared of the future, and that's his permanent state and what's coming, and he has to stabilize everything, and he's like has a will to send people to death just to save them from this plane, this terrible suffering of this life. Let's say that's how I translate it back to English. But it was said in 2007, and some things was really deep. But let's hope about 2027 he was dramatizing just to press us.
I think Ra was incredibly intelligent. And as much as I don't know how he put together human design, it seems pretty uncanny. I think I can't explain it, but it does. And I think he had some good understanding of the cycles, and he made, I don't know about the prophecy either. I don't know that it's true or not, but I definitely think he had a point of view, and he was so intelligent that his point of view, I won't say one way or the other. It's, for me, based on all of the prophecies, I'm like, okay, that could happen, but I'm not going to pin and say that's going to happen, because I just don't think we know. And even prophecies, we don't know exactly. So even if he put out an idea, even if he heard an idea while he was on drugs, there's lots of things and voices that we can hear about that. And I wouldn't put it past him if some kind of species were going to come to the forefront, I wouldn't put it past him. You know what? I thought it was really weird because, and I'm not going to put out another conspiracy theory, but Hawaii is going through the volcano, and it's putting the air quality in such a state where it makes me wonder, I guess, why people have bought land. Some of the technologists have bought land in Hawaii because what's his name? Meta guy.
Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, he bought all this land and he has underground bunkers there. And here we are, Hawaii is undergoing what climate change is basically. It's happening there first because all of the carbon dioxide. And I'm like, well, what if something happens in, like, I guess what I was like, isn't that weird that they bought up all this land and they have this bunker here? I wonder if they're doing some experiments. I know this is another conspiracy theory, but something could happen like that. You just don't even know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Comes to the surface. But have you heard this fresh idea that maybe artificial intelligence is actually new race people that would appear on the face of Earth? Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought when I first came into human design. I was like, oh, this is artificial intelligence. And people were like, no, because Ross said it wasn't. And I was like, well, okay. Because you've got Neuralink, this microchip happening.
Yeah.
Like, are you serious, people? Do you want somebody like him to put an implant, or anybody? I don't trust anybody these days to put an implant in your brain.
It would be so practical. Like, wake your 5-1 up. I'm really tired of all these screens, the devices that you could lose, and you have all your banking in your handy and everything in your phone. Yes, it's so uncomfortable. Yes.
You want somebody to start talking inside of you?
Maybe some tattoo here, would be enough. That's all right with me. Because all these devices, I do not trust them. They are unreliable. Yeah, they could be destroyed. No. So, but I'm not sure if Elon is good enough to allow him to drill into my brilliant brain.
based on this experience, I'm like, nobody's putting any devices in me because they can easily just turn it around, manipulate it. I'm like, absolutely not, unless they get enough people that truly don't understand. They're not investing in education here. So maybe they will, that are going to trust, like after what they've done, they're going to trust these people with their bodies. I mean, they've already shown themselves to be untrustworthy. And now I think they've dug their own grave, but they've got a whole generation that hasn't been through the experience that we've been through. And there are still people that don't even know because they've manipulated those people. I wouldn't trust anybody to put any kind of device in me after this experience. I might have before.
But now it's enough. Yeah, let's see how it unfolds. The only thing that could be scary for me in this case is that if you have a device in your head and everything would crash down at some point, let's imagine. Yeah. And what happens to you?
Even that, and then they had this bionic leg, and they've done a lot of health. They've advanced health to such a degree, but you can't afford it. So basically, if you're rich, you can live, but if you're poor, you can't. And they're taking away all of the things. Like if you've had it good, like some of my Pluto and Leo generation friends who are older now, they're taking away that medicine now because they're like, insurance won't pay for it. So their body has started to rely on that medicine, and now they're taking it away. Can you imagine like being an older person and being like, oh my God, okay, well now I'm going to die because I can't afford my medicine anymore that they
I saw it for many years already in Russia. That's what happened to my grandma and grandpa when they were in their 80s already, and they had no electricity, not enough electricity, and everything stopped functioning, and they were receiving a really good pensions and were prepared for some other way of getting older, but not buying a gas stove that would be working separately even when the lights are off. That's what they lived through. Yeah, that's nothing you do this. Yeah, that's a kind of normal in Russia. Sorry for saying this. Yeah.
So like, let's prepare now. I mean, I wish I would have done all this stuff. Like, we don't really have any money to even survive. It's hard to know what to prepare for, basically.
Yeah, so it's a good question. Yeah, what to prepare for. But I suppose tiny house movement, off-grid living is a good strategic thing. That's what I find really interesting. Off-grid life, just because you're not connected to any kind of communications that are state-owned or whatever. You're independent with your sun batteries and rainwater collections and whatever. That's what I find interesting in this case.
Yeah, and like learning how to make your own food and all that stuff, but I don't even have any money for that. Like learning all that stuff. Here I am studying astrology. Thank you, but whatever. You know what I mean? If I'm going to survive, I'm going to survive, and I'm not, I'm going to be shit out of luck. And that sucks. It sucks that we have to face this, it really does. But I'm hoping that more people wake up and start fighting for access to resources, even if we have to have an ability to work for them. I don't care how long I have to work, but if there's no jobs, it's just ridiculous. They think that we could just fall down and die, but I guess that's just how it is.
Oh, don't say anything. That's a standard policy in Russia. They're like, so after COVID, we have 1 million pensioners less. Oh, what a surprise! Yeah, that's how it is done in Russia. Oh, what a surprise! We had really low COVID statistics. Everything was all right in our country. Simply, when we look back, 1 million older people are somewhere else, not here.
Lies. Yeah, lies. That's what they're going to start doing. Like with the economy, there's so many people that are homeless and out of work, and yet everybody thinks that our unemployment is not as bad as it is. And you look outside and you see all of the tents and all of the people that are struggling. It's
I just saw a documentary on the channel about how the Finland dealt with it, and in 10 years they cleared the streets almost. So there's like home first. The policy is home first. You first give a flat to such people. So they literally collect them in the streets and bring them to the place they could live, and so on. And on the long run, it's even economically more effective.
Of course.
Of course, because you do not have to care of them. You do not have to collect dead bodies in the streets, because in Finland it could be easily minus 20 Celsius in winter, and they had to collect bodies in the streets after such winters. Yeah. And that's when they started to change. So, like, there are possibilities to solve this problem, but it's a question if the country is ready to invest in it, to pay attention to it.
What they're trying to do is privatize everything so that people either go to jail. That's how they do it. Jail. A lot of people make money off of jail, or religious institutions have to take over. And, the religious institutions are the ones that just want to make money. So they're going to control if you have access to that kind of situation, but you have to comply with rules and things that you might not want to comply with. Finland, they don't have the kind of population mix. They've got everybody going in one direction, really, mainly. I mean, they might have people that don't want to go in that direction, but they don't have the kind of population mix, which is our fault. I mean, it's not the people that were born here's fault and the people that we invited here's fault that we're in the situation that we're in today. It's our fault. So we definitely have a mixed population, and that population is growing less and less white. But that's not their fault. It's our fault. So do we deal with that situation by putting in controls like we're doing? I guess so. I guess that's what the conservative movement is trying to do, because they're scared of the population change. That's basically what it is.
But it's a conservative, like this kind of small conservative revolution before the end of the world, which Ra predicted, I suppose. But because this has the same situation here in Germany, and Nazist AfD party had 20% of votes on our elections.
Yeah.
That is how it looks now. Unbelievable, but true.
But I think those people the extremes are going to come out definitely before the mass chaos. And so we're experiencing that now. I'm hoping that people get into a little bit more reasonableness, but I think we're going to go through extremes. I don't think anybody's going to be safe from those extremes. And unfortunately, so I think we're all really going to have to look out for ourselves. And that's kind of the writings on the wall. And we'll have to come out in smaller communities and try to take care of each other and empower each other to live the way we want to live within a system that's gone to craziness. I guess that's what I see right now.
Tiny house living. Tiny house villages. That's like, sometimes I think to myself, okay, when everything goes that wrong, then I need a small house with completely off-grid possibilities, and that would help.
Well, that's basically how Black people have lived for a very long time. Like when I went to visit Georgia, they were still segregated, and a lot of Black people lived in those shacks because they had nothing else. And that's what, what they called them. And when in slavery times, those were the shacks that they got. So when you say small house, tiny house, I'm like, it just reminds me of that. And I'm like, okay.
But still, you do not need that much. But the main thing is that you are independent. You're not connected to these networks, and you more or less can survive by yourself.
Like unless you can't get access to the sun or something because of all the smog.
Okay. So
sorry,
we are not dramatic. Let's see. The time will show, and it is like only 2 years.
Yes,
less than 2 years until February 15th, when everything changes.
Yes. I definitely see some big changes for both Trump and Putin in a couple of years, but Putin especially, either next year is going to go underground or something, because he definitely
underground, definitely, like as we all wish. Well, as
he might come back. No.
I'm going to take care of it personally. I'm going to see to it because it's impossible. Enough is enough.
Yeah. Well, everybody has to go at some point, I mean, it's not like people are going to be around forever, and we'll see what happens. I don't wish death on anybody.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my personal approach, just because we all suffered that much. But to be honest, we received a Tsar who is like, and partially we deserve him. Yeah, and partially he is our blood and flesh. Yeah, and our ideology and our history. Yeah, but still, I'm really angry. I cannot see his pictures. Actually, it was a bit. It was a
Yeah, and I love Russians. Like I loved all of the Russian writers when I was younger, and I love all of. I have a love for many different people in different countries. I don't love the extremism. I don't love the dictatorships. I don't love, as much as I don't love the Christian right, I don't love the Muslim rulership that says that women must be hidden behind burqas and have no rights. So I don't like any of that extremism. I have no qualms to say, yes, I don't like extremism and I don't want it for ourselves. But I don't like have any, this one is better than the other one, extremism, you know, because I think they're both the same.
How can you compare? How can you compare? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We still have to hope for the better. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to give hope.
Yeah, please give some hope. Give us.
You can give the fear. We've switched, Tatiana, but that's what it's like. I give you hope. You give me.
The left, he seems to have hope motivation, by the way. Yeah.
You know what? So does Trump.
Yeah,
Trump has hope motivation.
And what about Elon?
And Putin has guilt. So they're, in this configuration, if their birth times are correct. So they work well together. They're the polar opposites, you know? And so it's very interesting. Trump, I have no idea. Like when I look at his chart, I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. His cross does imply that he had some pretty shady upbringing, and his upbringing does seem to be pretty shady. And he definitely was here to be the tribal leader and to have some chaotic experiences. But he does have that hope motivation. So, and he's right oriented. And so I'm like, okay, well, he's, everybody that's on our world stage is on our world stage because they're a reflection of the people that
energies of populations. And so there are a lot of people in Russia who think like Putin, who live like Putin, and they would have gladly lived like him or do it like, but he has a, cold-bloodedness and power to do it. Yeah, so they think he is their ideal, and he is a well-done guy. And there are millions of people who think like this. That's okay. That's how we have to deal with it.
Yeah, because they think that there's a means to an end. And all the charts that I looked at, we have that 13.2 Mercury. Remember 13.2, the bigotry. All the charts that I looked at for the Christian right. Of course, that's the ruler of our South node, so it's where we came from. So we're speaking out about it. Or I am, but all of those charts have that 13.2, and I'm like, Christian right charts. Of course, that's they want to say only these people get access, only this people get access to the resources, and or we only empathize with these people. But at the same time, it's like we're communicating about it. But it's just so interesting to see that come out in other people's charts. So everybody's a mix of everything.
The world goes its own way. And like, I do remember this quote from Ra, like, if you think that something is wrong with the world, it means that something is wrong with you, stupid.
Yes.
I do agree. Now I understand it. Finally, I get it.
Yeah. For me, this has just been helpful, this exercise, because then I learn, and then I'm like, okay, I can take a step back and understand that there's mechanisms that are beyond my control. And all I can do is focus on my little life and doing this, which is calling attention to it and helping other people understand. But that's all I can do.
Yeah, that's living yourself, by the way. Yeah. So all these situations when we were talking about, so I have reached my depths recently, but I slowly but steadily start to understand what it is to love yourself, actually.
Yeah.
To allow yourself to live your life, your own life, to live like yourself.
Yeah.
And it is completely different. So, like nowadays, I think that without human design, I would be lost in such times.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, me
Mhm.
too. Like, I feel like this was divine intervention for me, learning
Mhm.
astrology. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have this tool to be
Mhm.
obsessed about.
But yeah,
But
because when you
also,
open the news, like this is the end
yeah,
of everything.
yeah. Yeah, I would be a mess. And I'm still like my own mess. I get identified just like anybody, but at least I have something to pour my energy into, and also to understand that I'm just going to be doing this for myself and fuck
Mhm.
everybody else. And I don't have to
Fuck
prove
them all.
myself. I can be the perfectionist where I need to be, and I can be the judgment where I need to be, and not be ashamed of who I am and what I bring to the
Mhm.
table. For sure. And I've had to deal with a lot of those experiences just recently to say, am I proving myself? Like, what am I doing? Why am I spending all of this time doing this thing? It has to be for myself. Otherwise,
Mhm.
I can't do it. It's just too much energy. I can't anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. Like you have to be really careful where and how you invest your energy. Like we're
Yeah.
not 17 anymore, but the times, okay, it doesn't matter how old or how young we are, but what happens around us.
Yes. All right. Well, I hope that we can get together every once in a while, because it was
Nice
really
talk.
a
I
pleasure.
have really a feeling, this sweet feeling of this is not a success. This is a sweetness inside. Do you feel it? Some kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, like your soul ate some nice sweet chocolate cake or whatever.
We're definitely sisters. We're definitely
Yes.
sisters. That's what I feel like, you help me.
Sisters in heresy. Yes.
Yes. All right. So invite me if you ever have, whenever you feel like you have the energy, invite me to something.
Let's search for a topic. But yeah, I think life would bring some
And
interesting topics immediately. Like
you don't have to plan anything,
Mhm.
just invite me and tell me what you're thinking, and I'll do my thing and you do your thing.
Nice.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right.
It was nice talking to you. Ciao, everybody. Ciao. Bye bye.